Hello, friends. It's time we talk about initiation again, or more precisely, what attributes an initiate should have. That is to say, an initiate is a combination of the tarot cards 4 and 5, the Emperor and the Hierophant. Let's start with number 4, the Emperor. What is his main attribute? That would be authority. But that's a bit of a dirty word nowadays, so let's use the word authorship instead. Why authorship? Really, it's because you need to be an author of your own life. If someone else is writing your life for you, your life story, then you're not an initiate. You must be in control of your own life. You must have self-authority. And this self-authority, this self-authorship, implies that you're competent. You have competence, and this gives you the attribute of command. And this attribute of command is symbolized by the scepter. This is what the Emperor carries, and to have the Emperor card incarnate within us, we must have this scepter. We must have command over our life. In the age we live in, command is often taken by the sword of violence, the sword of brutality. This is not the way of the scepter. This is not the true command of the Emperor. But alas, nonetheless, once we have this command, this competence, this authority, we've lived our life wisely, where do we go from there? Well, this is where card number 5 comes in, the Hierophant. You see, the Hierophant, or High Priest, is the same as the Emperor. It also implies competence and command, but not on the horizontal life, the physical life, no. The High Priest, the Hierophant, implies that you have an authority in the vertical, the spiritual. For this, I will make reference to the oldest of the initiatic traditions, Freemasonry. The Masons guard 3 things: signs, words, and grips. These 3 are themselves symbolic and suggest merely 3 ways that the aspirant can gain spiritual initiatic knowledge. A sign is something perceived with vision. In other words, it is knowledge that is experienced through clairvoyance or visionary experiences. A word is something that is heard via communication with another being. And a grip refers to knowledge received through touch or direct contact with another being. For those fans of Rudolf Steiner, you may recognize the outline of imagination, inspiration, and intuition here. In this case, when he talks about imagination, he means to make the personality passive so that we can receive knowledge. When he talks about inspiration, this is more of a dual activity. Think of an artist listening to their muse. In this case, they're not passive, they are thinking or pondering, but there's also something else there, pondering with them. In this case, the other being joining in on the pondering may be an elemental, an angel, some kind of spirit, a god, a deity, or maybe their own higher self, their own higher nature. The crux of the knowledge that is received through imagination, inspiration, and intuition is knowledge that doesn't come as data through physicality, through materialism. It's knowledge that's not even developed through intellect. It's knowledge that is received through awakening, through ascending, and perhaps a bit of descending as well. But nonetheless, let us move on to intuition, the most important of the 3. Intuition in this esoteric sense is a direct knowing. That is to say, it's not a figuring out, like, oh, I just thought about it and eventually I arrived at the right conclusion. No, intuition is direct. There is no rationale, there is no wandering. It's perception and comprehension instantaneously as one. To intuit something is completely outside of the senses. It is even above certain lower psychic faculties. To intuit something means that your essence has touched the essence of that other thing. In this way, intuitive knowledge is true Gnostic knowledge that radically changes your being itself. So you may gain imaginal knowledge, but you may not understand the vision that you see. You may gain this inspirational knowledge, but you may not understand what you hear. But intuitional knowledge, there is always understanding. It is pure understanding. By following these first steps, by mixing the 4 and the 5 together, we get the number 9, the hermit, or the initiate. That is to say, the man who has conquered both the horizontal and vertical line, the man who is competent in both the physical and the other world. However, let us not just stop here talking about authority, but let us engage with the second step, that is, to apprehend your life as a totality. This is a bit of an obscure concept, so let's develop it a bit. When you look at your life, when you look at the memories you have, you react to them. Perhaps you're trying to meditate in silence and then all of a sudden a memory from high school comes and you think to yourself, ugh, cringe. This is the challenge. You don't want to react to any of your thoughts or memories with aversion or fascination. It's these things that entangle us in that mental energy, those mental knots. So instead of being assaulted by memories in our meditation, we take the battle to them with the retrospective exercise. This exercise is somewhat ubiquitous in esoteric schools. You see it in Rosicrucian schools, in Hermetic schools, Neo-Gnostic schools, even in Eastern schools, they all practice a form of the retrospective exercise. But let us be clear why we are doing this. You are trying to make your day objective. That is, we usually live our day in a mechanical state. However, by practicing this exercise at the end of every day, it creates a kind of a conscious stopper, or perhaps a starter in a sense. Through our day, we begin to feel our awareness almost reaching back in time. There are moments in the day that become clearer because we remember ourselves in those moments. In those moments, we become conscious that we will have to remember this in the future. There is a connection between the past and the future. And this, in essence, is what's trying to be cultivated. You're not necessarily trying to cultivate a strong visualization or trying to cultivate a strong tactile sensation, or you're trying to invoke the smells and the memories or something. What you're doing is you're trying to create a backwards motion in your internal world. As you get used to viewing your day objectively, without becoming identified in the dramas, the tragedies, the comedies, without being fascinated in any of the events, things become clearer, things begin to contrast. By continually watching yourself outside of yourself, this retrospective exercise mimics a kind of a non-dual contemplation. And let us now shift the discussion a bit and talk about time. Time and space are a little bit different to the initiate. Let's think about it like this. Imagine the idea of a flatlander, that is a two-dimensional being, living on a two-dimensional plane. So we can imagine this by thinking of a piece of paper, and that paper being the entirety of a world of little beings that live within it. Now imagine you get a pencil, and you push that pencil through the paper. Those tiny little beings, how do they view the pencil that you push through their world? Yes, of course, they'd view it section by section. And this to them would appear as an act of time, something to do with chronology. But you see the beginning of the pencil. That is something in the past for them. And you also see the end at the same time. So something for the little flatlanders that live in the paper world, something that corresponds to time, to the past, the present, and the future, for you is apprehended all at once as an aspect of space. And so now, coming back to our concept of the retrospective exercise, fundamentally, you are a fourth-dimensional pencil that is being pushed through a three-dimensional world. That is to say, your entire life is one great line that you can apprehend as one thing. And if you're able to do this, you experience yourself as if you are standing in eternity. This gives one more opportunity This gives one perhaps the ability to see the recurrences that replay in one's life. And if you can see the recurrences, you may be able to see their origin, true origin, which is outside of this life. In other words, into modes of existence and lines of life that came before you entered into this world. These, my friends, are the first 2 steps that we make towards initiation. The steps of authority and eternity.